Welcome to the deep dive. Consider this. The global market for acute lymphoblastic leukemia, that's ALL, is projected to hit, well, a staggering USD 3.72 billion in 2025.
Wow.
Yeah. And that number isn't just a statistic. It really signals a huge amount of activity, research, and crucially, investment focused on tackling this disease.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it's really designed to give you a clear understanding of this, dynamic market. We've been looking at a comprehensive report, and it offers a really detailed snapshot of the current landscape and, maybe more importantly, where it's headed.
Right.
Our aim is to sort of extract the core insights, the key trends, and the major factors at play, making this complex picture accessible and informative for you.
Precisely. Our mission today is to unpack that multi-billion-dollar figure, exploring the growth trajectories, the regional variations, the cutting-edge treatments being used.
Oh, the key stuff.
And the forces shaping this field. So with that in mind, let's dive in.
Okay, let's unpack this. The report kicks off with that significant market size for ALL in 2025. USD 3.72 billion.
But what happens next is really telling, isn't it?
It is. What's fascinating here is the projected growth. The report indicates a substantial expansion.
How substantial?
Well, up to USD 6.58532 billion by 2033.
Wow.
Yeah, and to put that into perspective, that's a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of 7.40% between 2025 and 2033.
A 7.4% CAGR. So what does that practically mean for you listening?
And just to give you a sense of the timeline behind these figures, the base year for these calculations was 2024.
Right.
The historical data covered 2021 to 2024. 2025 is the estimated year. And the forecast, it extends out to 2033.
Got it.
Now, let's maybe zoom in on how this market breaks down geographically, because there are some really interesting dynamics at play in different regions.
Absolutely. The report gives us a really detailed view here. Starting with North America. It currently holds the largest share.
The biggest piece of the pie?
Yeah, accounting for over 40% of the global revenue in 2025. That translates to a market size of USD 3,376.40 million.
Okay.
And its projected CGR is 5.9% between 2025 and 2033.
And within North America, the United States is, well, the dominant force, no surprise there.
Right.
A market size of USD 185.98 million in 2025, and a slightly lower CAGR, actually 5.7%.
Interesting.
But we also see Canada with a market of USD 165.17 million and a stronger growth rate, 6.7%. And Mexico at USD 125.25 million with a KGR of 6.4%. So, while North America leads overall, there's varied growth happening within it.
That makes sense. Okay, moving across the Atlantic to Europe. They hold the second largest market share in 2025.
Yeah.
Over 30%. Yeah, over 30% of global revenue, which is about USD 178.80 million. Their projected CAGR is 6.4% from 2025 to 2023.
A solid number.
So within this strong European market, which countries are the key drivers?
Well, the United Kingdom and Germany really stand out.
Okay.
The UK market is estimated at USD 181.24 million in 2025, with a pretty robust TGR of 7.2%.
Higher than the US then?
Yeah. And Germany is slightly larger at USD 213.60 million with an AGR of 6.6%.
Right.
These figures likely reflect, their well-established healthcare systems and significant investment in medical research.
Sure.
And then we also see France, Italy, Russia, Spain, and then a collection of smaller but still relevant markets like Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, Luxembourg.
A long list.
And a broader rest of Europe category, too, each with its own specific market size and projected growth rate, contributing to that overall European picture.
So Europe presents quite a diverse landscape, really, both major and smaller players in the ALL market. Now, let's turn our attention to Asia-Pacific, or APAC. This region holds around 23% of the global revenue in 2025, market size USD 892.80 million. But here's where the growth story really accelerates.
Yeah, this is fascinating. The APAC region is projected to have the fastest CAGR globally, a remarkable 10.1% between 2025 and 2033.
10.1%. Wow.
It's huge. And it's not just about a larger population base, though that's part of it. It likely reflects increasing investment in healthcare infrastructure,
Right.
improved diagnostic capabilities leading to more identified cases, and, importantly, a growing adoption of advanced therapies that were maybe previously less accessible there.
Right, catching up fast.
Exactly. And this shift has significant implications for global pharmaceutical companies' market strategies,
I bet. At 10.1% CAGR is really significant. Which countries within APAC are contributing most to this rapid expansion?
Well, China is a major driving force. Market size of USD 374.98 million in 2025, CAGR of 9.6%.
Still huge.
Very. Japan and South Korea also have substantial markets and strong growth rates. But interestingly, India is projected to have the highest CAGR within APAC.
Really?
Yeah, a striking 12.0%, with a market size of USD 89.28 million in 2025.
12%. Incredible.
It is. And then countries like Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, the collective Southeast Asia region, and the rest of APAC also contribute to this dynamic growth.
It really sounds like APAC is not just a region to watch, but maybe the key area driving the future of the OAL treatment market.
It certainly looks that way based on these projections.
Okay, what about the other parts of the world? South America.
South America holds a smaller share, just over 5% of global revenue in 2025. That's about USD 141.36 million with a CAGR of 8.1%.
Still respectable growth.
Oh yeah. Brazil and Argentina are the largest markets within that region.
Okay. And the Middle East.
The Middle East accounts for around a 2% share, estimated at USD 148.8 million in 2025, with a slightly higher CGR of 8.7%.
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia and the UAE are the primary markets there.
And Africa.
And finally, Africa holds about 1% of the global revenue. That's USD 81.84 million in 2025, with a CGR of 7.7%. South Africa and Nigeria are the largest contributors there.
Okay. So, to sort of recap the regional picture, North America is the current leader in market size.
Yeah, holds the biggest slice.
But the Asia-Pacific region is clearly the engine of future growth with that impressive double-digit CGR.
Absolutely. That's the key takeaway geographically.
Okay, now let's shift our focus from geography to the types of treatments being used in the fight against LL. How is the market segmented by treatment outlook?
Right, so the report categorizes the market by treatment into several key areas: chemotherapy, radiation therapy, bone marrow transplant, targeted therapy, and immunotherapy.
And the report highlights that chemotherapy is still expected to be the dominant treatment approach in 2025. That's interesting, isn't it, given all the advancements we hear about?
It is interesting.
Why does chemo maintain this leading position?
Well, chemotherapy has been the established standard of care for, many years. And it remains particularly effective in the initial stages of ALL.
Why is that?
Because it can rapidly attack and destroy leukemia cells pretty much throughout the body.
Ah, okay. Systemic.
Exactly. So despite the exciting developments in newer therapies, chemo remains a crucial first-line treatment for achieving remission in both kids and adults.
That makes sense for initial treatment.
Yeah.
But the report also points out that immunotherapy is the fastest growing segment.
That is.
What's fueling that rapid increase in its use?
Immunotherapy, which takes a more precise approach by leveraging the body's own immune system to fight cancer,
Right.
is demonstrating significant success, especially in patients with relapsed or refractory ALL.
Those harder to treat cases.
Precisely. Those cases where other treatments maybe haven't worked. Think of CAR T-cell therapy as a key example here.
Can you briefly explain that?
Sure. We're essentially training the patient's own immune system to become highly specialized cancer hunters.
Wow.
We take their T cells, part of their immune defense, genetically modify them in the lab to recognize and attack leukemia cells, and then infuse them back into the patient.
Incredible stuff.
It really is. And monoclonal antibodies are another key type of immunotherapy. These targeted approaches often lead to improved survival rates and can sometimes have fewer broad side effects compared to traditional chemo. That's why that adoption is expanding so quickly.
It's fascinating to see how these more sort of targeted and sophisticated therapies are increasingly finding their place. Now, let's look at the other way the market is segmented by who is actually providing these treatments, the end-user outlook.
Right. The report identifies three main end-user segments: hospitals, clinics, and others.
And it seems hospitals currently hold the largest share of this market. Why is that?
Well, hospitals are typically the primary centers for diagnosis and comprehensive treatment of ALL.
Makes sense.
They offer the full spectrum of advanced therapies: chemo, bone marrow transplants, and increasingly, those cutting-edge immunotherapies like CAR-RT.
Hey, the infrastructure.
Exactly. Their specialized oncology departments, access to clinical trials, and established infrastructure make them central to patient care. That explains their significant market share.
But the report also notes that the clinic segment is experiencing rapid growth. What's driving that expansion?
Yeah, the quick growth of the clinic segment is largely down to the increasing availability and administration of those advanced therapies we just discussed.
The CAR T cells, the antibodies.
Exactly. CAR T-cell treatments and monoclonal antibodies. Specialized clinics are emerging that can provide this kind of personalized care, sometimes in an outpatient setting,
Oh, interesting.
and even participate in clinical trials. This offers patients more options and can potentially improve access to these innovative treatments outside the traditional hospital setting.
So while hospitals are the established leaders, clinics are becoming an increasingly important part of how patients receive all-L treatment.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's dig into the forces that are actually, powering this market, the key market dynamics. The report outlines several important drivers.
Absolutely. Among the primary drivers are the ongoing advancements in targeted therapies and immunotherapies,
We keep coming back to those.
because they're crucial. The development of drugs like tyrosine kinase inhibitors, TKIs, monoclonal antibodies, and the remarkable progress in CAR T-cell therapy. They're significantly enhancing how effectively we can treat all-L and contributing to improved survival rates for patients.
And the report even highlights a specific example of this innovation, right? Mentioning the FDA approval of icelgusimab,
Ponatinib,
for newly diagnosed Philadelphia chromosome-positive LL when used with chemo.
that's right. It really underscores the continuous progress in this field.
Definitely. What are some of the other factors fueling market growth?
Another significant driver is simply the rising number of new AL cases diagnosed globally.
Unfortunately.
Yes. It's a disease that can affect both children and older adults. And, well, the increasing aging population contributes to a higher incidence of adult-onset cases.
Right.
And it's a sobering fact that AL is one of the most common childhood cancers. Accounts for around 25% of all pediatric malignancies.
Wow. 25%?
Yeah, which naturally increases the demand for effective treatments.
Has a significant impact, sadly. And it makes logical sense that a higher incidence would contribute to market growth. What else is playing a role?
Increased healthcare spending worldwide and supportive initiatives from governments are also crucial. Greater efforts to raise awareness about LL, combined with collaborations between public and private sectors, are improving screening programs and strengthening healthcare infrastructure.
Especially in developing countries.
Particularly in developing economies, yes. This increased investment and focus on early detection and treatment are important factors driving market expansion.
So advancements in treatment, rising cases, growing investment, all pushing things forward. However, the report also mentions challenges, right? Restraints that might temper this growth.
Yes, there are definitely hurdles. One of the most significant restraints is the high cost of many of these advanced treatments and the limited accessibility they face, especially in low and middle income countries.
We touched on that, CAR-RT.
Exactly.
Right.
As we mentioned, therapies like CAR-RT cell therapy can come with a price tag in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Which is just prohibitive for many.
It makes them simply unaffordable for many patients and healthcare systems around the world. It's a major equity issue.
Absolutely. That presents a really significant barrier.
Yeah.
Are there other factors holding back the market?
Yes. The potential for adverse side effects and complications associated with both chemotherapy and some targeted therapies can also limit their adoption in certain patients.
Right, the toxicity.
Exactly. While newer therapies aim to be more precise, they still carry potential risks that need careful consideration and management.
It seems like there's a constant balancing act, isn't there, between the effectiveness of a treatment and how well a patient can tolerate it.
Always.
Now, looking ahead, what are some of the key trends that are expected to shape the future direction of the L market?
Well, we're seeing a clear and accelerating trend towards the increased use of targeted therapies and immunotherapies.
No surprise there.
No. CAR-RT cell therapy continues to be a prime example driving this shift. The encouraging outcomes we've seen with therapies like Kymriah are really fueling further R&D in this innovative area.
And it's not just about the emergence of new types of treatments, is it? The report also brings up something called minimal residual disease testing, MRD.
Ah, yes, MRD testing.
What's the significance of that?
Exactly. The growing use of MRD testing is another really important trend. Minimal residual disease, or MRD, refers to the very small number of cancer cells that can remain in the body after treatment.
Even if someone seems to be in remission.
Precisely. Even if initial treatment appears successful, these remaining cells can unfortunately lead to a relapse down the line.
Oh, okay.
Highly sensitive MRD testing allows doctors to detect these tiny numbers of cells. This provides crucial information for assessing a patient's risk of relapse
Mm-hmm.
and helping to tailor ongoing treatment strategies. More personalized medicine.
Right.
And importantly, regulatory agencies are increasingly recognizing MRD status as a key indicator of how effective a treatment is in clinical trials.
So it's becoming an endpoint.
Becoming a very important one, yes, which is further driving the adoption of this sophisticated testing.
That sounds like a significant move towards more personalized and proactive ways of managing the disease. Now, the report also touches on a significant external factor, something that could have implications for the market: the impact of the reintroduction of tariffs in April 2025,
The tariffs. Yes.
specifically targeting goods from China and India. How might this affect the owl market?
Right. The reintroduction of these tariffs, which range from 10% to 46%, on pharmaceutical products, active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, medical packaging, and machinery,
Wow, quite a range.
coming from China and India has several potential consequences. Firstly, it could lead to increased production costs for pharma companies in the U.S.,
Right.
particularly for manufacturers of generic drugs who often rely heavily on APIs sourced from these regions because, well, they're cost-effective.
So the cost of producing certain medications used to treat APL could potentially go up as a result.
That's certainly a possibility, yes. We might also see disruptions in the supply chain, maybe increased regulatory hurdles as companies navigate these new tariff structures. The biopharmaceutical and vaccine sectors could also be affected. Tariffs on essential materials like bioproduction media or specialized cold chain packaging could drive up their costs too.
It affects the whole ecosystem.
It really does.
Hmm.
Even contract manufacturing organizations, CMOs, might need to seek out new suppliers to mitigate the impact.
It sounds like a complex web of potential economic consequences for the industry. And it's not just a one-way street, is it? Other countries might respond.
Exactly. There's the potential for retaliatory tariffs from other regions, say the European Union, on pharmaceutical products exported from the U.S., which could further complicate the global trade landscape. Additionally, the timelines for clinical trials could be impacted due to tariffs on necessary drugs and diagnostic kits.
Right, delays there.
Delays, cost increases. In this uncertain environment, the report emphasizes the vital role of thorough market research.
To navigate it all.
Exactly. Helping companies understand pricing dynamics, assess supply chain reliability, evaluate the overall impact of these tariffs, basically make informed strategic decisions.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it, of how global politics and economics can intersect directly with the healthcare industry.
Absolutely.
Finally, let's discuss who the major players are in the competitive landscape of the all market.
Okay. The report describes the market as highly competitive.
I bet.
Yeah, with a significant presence of large pharmaceutical companies. They're making substantial investments in developing advanced therapies,
Like the CAR-Ts and antibodies again?
particularly in areas like CAR and T-cell therapy, monoclonal antibodies, and other targeted drugs, yes.
And what are the key areas where these companies are, vying for an edge?
Well, the competition is intense across several fronts. The pace and success of their R&D efforts, the efficiency and outcomes of their clinical trials, their ability to secure timely regulatory approvals for new therapies.
The whole pipeline.
The whole pipeline, and also their strategic use of partnerships and acquisitions to strengthen their market position and expand their portfolios.
And the report provides a couple of recent examples of activity, doesn't it?
Yes, it mentions the launch of nenurabine injection by Shorelaw Oncology and Eversana back in May 2023,
Okay.
and also the merger agreement between Coeptis Therapeutics and Bullhorn Holdings Corp. In April 2023. These just illustrate the ongoing developments and kind of the trend towards consolidation within the industry.
Right. And the report lists some of the leading companies active in this space.
That's right. While it's not presented in any specific order or ranking,
Sure.
some of the key companies mentioned include Bristol Myers Squibb Company, Cellogen Corporation, Izyco Ltd., Aritech Pharma, F. Hoffman LaRoche Ltd.,
The big names.
Genmab AS, GSK PLC, Novartis AG, Pfizer Inc., and Sanofi. The usual suspects, many of them.
Yeah.
And it's also worth noting that the full report likely contains more detailed, maybe confidential data regarding other competitors in the market, too.
Of course. So it's a market really dominated by major pharmaceutical players with a lot of dynamic activity focused on innovation and strategic maneuvering. Okay, to bring everything together, let's maybe recap the key insights from our deep dive into the AL market.
Sounds good. Firstly, the global market for acute lymphoblastic leukemia is substantial. Projected size USD 3.72 billion in 2025,
Right.
and significant anticipated growth to nearly USD 6.6 billion by 2033.
And while North America currently holds the largest market share,
The Asia-Pacific region is expected to experience the most rapid growth. That's a key point.
definitely. We also learned that while chemotherapy remains fundamental, especially initially,
Immunotherapy is the fastest growing segment, driven by successes in things like CAR-T cell therapy and monoclonal antibodies.
and hospitals are currently the primary providers, but clinics are playing an increasingly important role, especially for those advanced therapies.
That's right. And we also discussed the significant influence of factors like the high cost of treatments
Big one.
and the complexities of global trade policies like those potential tariffs. The market itself is characterized by strong competition among major pharma companies, all focused on R&D and strategy.
This has been a truly insightful exploration into the current state and future direction of the ALE market. Now, for our final thought, considering the rapid advancements we're seeing in personalized medicine, like the MRD testing and immunotherapies, and also the various economic factors at play, like costs and tariffs, what do you think might be the biggest disruptor in the ARL treatment landscape over the next decade?
Good question.
And maybe, how do you envision accessibility to these cutting-edge therapies evolving across the globe? Will that gap close?
That's the crucial part.
It's something to really ponder that intricate relationship between scientific progress and economic realities in shaping the future of how we treat all well. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.